just like write on my canvas, just like please stand by. Sound coming shortly.
And I think they heard that. So.
Okay.
All right, everyone, let us know if you can hear us now. So that way, there's so many different checks and balances. So I'm behind the scenes just making sure. So somebody texts us that you can hear us now. Always takes a second for the delay. Much better. Okay, perfect.
Yay.
All right, we're back. So like I was saying, we have the lovely Chelsea this evening, Chelsea Lang, and we have Emma Curtis behind the switcher this evening. And so if you hear someone's lovely voice, that is who you're hearing. And then we have the fabulous, extraordinaire Mike, our model, who will be modeling for us this evening. Right now, I'm drawing a blank on your last name, Mike. What was it? Radford. That's it. I wanted to say Rutherford, and I knew it was wrong. It was close, though. I was close. We're going to have a live feed of Mike up in a little bit. We ran out of time to get that put up, but I will do that on one of the breaks, as well as you will be able to get the reference images on the link below, just like always. If you already have put in your email, just put it in there again. Like you always, you'll have access to all of the reference images from all of the painting from lives before. Without further ado, we're going to get started. I need to go grab my paints really quick, but we're going to start with Chelsea talking us up until I can bring those paints back. All right. And they're right around the corner. It's not like they're like very far. All right. You're on.
All right, I'm on. Wow, I'm so glad that I realized that my camera is not adjusted to where it should be.
Welcome, everyone.
Yeah, especially because, okay, there's the record button. I haven't done this in ages.
You got it, Chelsea.
Thanks. Man. So normally I would have pre-mixed some paint here, but we just had like a last-minute lighting adjustment, which is the thing I needed. So instead, I'm just going to go in and start drawing rather than working on pre-mixing or anything like that. I can't believe it, Louis. You had this big song and dance about prepping your palette beforehand, and it wasn't even on your easel.
Hold on, unmute. So yes, I put it in the fridge because I did it this morning, and so now I have a very cold palette.
Excellent.
Ready to go. But yeah, I thought for once I will try something different that might work for me, which is I always feel like at the last minute I don't have anything prepped and ready to go on my palette. And I was like, well, let's start with that first. And then that way I can just panic with all of the video and audio stuff all the way to the end. So
it's one or the other.
Yeah. So and in this instance, we were able to solve the video and audio stuff pretty quickly. So
yeah,
we're good there.
Probably do need to create a little banner that goes up that says like, just so you know, if there's like a big false start where you see us talking to camera and you can't do a darn thing, don't worry.
Luckily, we've got a great audience. They will let us know right away if we are doing a silent film. You know?
Yeah.
I need to like do like a little spoof and just like come up with like a Charlie Chaplin look.
Oh, that'd be
just,
good. You can like just put it in black and white, and Emma can just start putting captions on the bottom.
Oh, that would be great.
That'd be
like
so fun.
well, it doesn't even need to be bottom. We just like straight over to a full caption like we do in the old films, you know? So, look, a model. I will paint them.
Amazing.
So Judith has asked, what are we painting this evening? And we have a really wonderful model, and there are reference images available on our website.
And there's a good look of our model, and we do have a live feed on him, and we'll switch to it until we have a chance for me to add it to our sort of multi-view scene.
Yes, that will be coming.
So until then, we'll keep switching around so that y'all can continue to see. Of course, obviously, both Chelsea and I have different vantage points than even the point that y'all see. But we do have some photo reference images that are similar to the vantage points that we have.
Yeah, I like having a different vantage point because people theoretically can't tell me that I've made a terrible
Yeah,
job
right.
there.
Yeah. I swear the nose is an inch down when you shift over to the left a half a bit.
I can't tell you how many times I've had like a YouTube video or something like that, and someone will very kindly and respectfully point out that the drawing is all wrong and the face is like really squished, and it's
Oh,
because
really?
my camera is off at an
Oh,
angle.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Sadly, we make better doors than windows,
yeah,
and so for us to actually be able to put the camera in our exact spot would be very difficult. It's funny because when I was trying to figure out solutions, I was going to OBS, and for anyone who doesn't know what that is, that's a video platform, and trying to find a plugin that would better,
like fix
yeah,
the
it would do like,
parallax.
yeah, it would warp back the perspective warp. So, but yeah, so, um, but you know what? They used to have one because people would use them for sports boards.
Oh.
So, like, if you were to like look at the scoreboard
Mhm.
and it'd be off at an angle, it would help like put it square.
Yeah,
But the people who made the modification or the mod for it would finally discontinued. So
well,
got to
that's a
find a
shame.
different solution.
Louis, I see going with the very measured, very thoughtful approach to the block-in, and I'm just,
All over the place.
yeah, I'm just trying things, being like, well, that's terrible, I hate it, painting, and
I think I'm going to try a little bit of both tonight. We'll see what happens.
I think people like to see it all. Mix it up.
good.
Yep. I'm also I'm pulling a Chelsea today. I'm doing a white panel, not doing a toned
Oh.
one. So
That's my secret. I never plan, never prep. Just go in cold and blind and everything else you don't want to be.
that's so funny. I thought it was always intentional.
Just want to show off my incredible prowess.
It's kind of a nice angle. His head lifted up a little bit, and that's not something we're typically doing. I had like the last pose we had Mike do, his head was down, so gives him a sense of sort of a regal feel, looking over his subjects.
I agree, and I appreciate everyone's flexibility with the pose and the lighting. I'm just super excited by the angle that I have. I have my Van Dyke Z, very Sargent inspired. Louis introduced me to the term while we were setting up. And here I am, probably really prematurely putting it in my pocket. We'll see if this goes to bite me in the butt.
We will see.
This reminds me of like when we painted Brother Joel.
Yeah.
And I had such a beautiful block-in. I got to use it for my YouTube thumbnail and everything. I was just so thoughtful in like every mark that went down. And already I think I've kind of
botched it, is what you're saying?
I think I've kind of limited my ability to accomplish that same thing on this one, but we'll see.
Trying to snag a landmark. I think I got one finally. Took a second to. I always like to find like one little landmark that's like sort of the cornerstone of how I'm going to set everything up, and then go from there. So now,
What did you choose?
because typically when you're painting someone with their head sort of level with yours, roughly the tear duct is like the halfway mark on the face. But when they have their head lifted, it's more slightly down the nose. So I landed on just like sort of just a little bit of a shadow structure in his notes that is going to work as sort of my cornerstone of figuring out where everything goes.
Nice. One thing I was like thinking on this week, because I was working on a Sargent master copy and I'm working off of, like a print of a Sargent painting versus working from life. One thing that really stood out to me while I was working on it is that my approach to coming in here and painting from life is so antithetical to how I work in the studio. I have a photo reference or a printed reference, like I'm doing a master copy, where I noticed that it's so much easier to get into a sort of a flow when I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
I think specifically because I cannot fall back on a 2D printed reference. I
Yeah.
kind of have to work more intuitively.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And man, I would love to make sure that I'm prioritizing that more often, because I think it just, that feeling is what makes painting so enjoyable.
Right. It really does.
But I think I tie it so much to this very like academic way of working that feels, or I tie the like working off of a 2D reference to this very academic feeling.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't really put my finger on how I can still work off, like how I can still work on a master copy or work off of a photo reference and accomplish a similar result.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the only thing that I think of there is that like there's a bit of whenever you're just like still you're recording it, so it's different. But I think because we're live, it kind of helps with where we're you are kind of being what's the word I'm looking for?
Observe.
No, it's improvisational, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah.
It's kind of where I'm going with. And so you're kind of operating in a sense of improv, and it gives a certain energy to the work as well.
Yeah.
We have a few comments so far.
Mhm.
Todd had said, Chelsea, you're absolutely crushing it lately.
Thank you, Todd. I love to hear that. Like,
Right?
please give me all the encouragement.
Yeah, exactly.
Is a very vulnerable thing, being a painter and putting your stuff out there and hoping that it resonates for people. And I don't know, kind of getting comments from internet strangers on a YouTube video is not the same as someone being able to offer you that encouragement in the chat. So thank you. I really appreciate it. I guess I should look straight at camera when I say that and not back at you, Emma. But Todd, just know I appreciate that very much. Makes a big difference.
And then Lou has said that they just downloaded a reference picture. I'll be pretending to paint alongside you in real time. Thanks, East Oaks.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to hearing how it goes. Let us see what you got when you're done.
And then Todd has a question. What are y'all's feelings about how Sargent started from the midtones?
You know what? This like triggers my imposter syndrome so much because I feel like I should have this carefully prepared answer to this question or be really informed on this. But I'm definitely the painter who looks at his work and kind of does like here's how I would reverse engineer this versus the art historian who says, oh, I've done all the research and this is exactly what he would have done. So I'm actually kind of curious what you might have come across. I do know of painters who will start in the midtones. Um, but everything in my experience, if I were working on like a Sargent master copy, would lead me to think about just lights and darks to begin, and sticking with that as staunchly as I could. But I might be missing something because I am certainly not the, I don't know, the keeper of the Sargent knowledge.
Yeah, I always say we had to refer to our Sargent scholar when it comes to that. Shane Neal, who is probably one of the more read people on Sargent than anyone, as far as that's concerned. So now I do know that he would start in the midtones, but when we say start, are we talking about the drawing, or are we talking about just like how he wouldn't do like a shadow and a light, or bring down from there or turn out of the shadow, instead would like put down a base midtone, so, and then would he draw afterwards, or would he draw during, so those things that's what I'm not sure about.
That makes a lot of sense. Can you, or okay, I'll tell you what I kind of took out of that, and if I've sort of misinterpreted or misunderstood, then that'll
Mhm.
give you an avenue to repeat yourself. So my understanding is that yes, we have sufficient evidence that he would have started in the midtones, but be careful not to make assumptions about what it means. It could be that he's laying an overall flesh tone, and then maybe establishes the drawing with the darks after that, maybe kind of Jeremy Lipking style
Yeah.
or Richard Schmid style.
Mhm.
Um, and so that doesn't necessarily mean that as I'm looking at our model here, that I would say like, all right, I'm going to draw out all the midtones on his face.
Mhm. Right.
What it could mean is that I would have laid down a big old generic flesh tone and then started to draw into that with my darks.
Right. Yeah.
Cool.
That's what I think you said it so well. I love having Chelsea on here because her thought process and her verbal processing is so coherent and linear.
Oh, that is, gosh, I was just having a conversation today about how I can be so long-winded. So I'll take any compliments on being able to verbalize things in an effective way.
That's great. Um, no, I'm such a verbal processor, and it's funny. I was watching something on Instagram recently that was this girl was like, "Are you a talk to thinker or a think to talker?" And she was like, "So like my husband and I are very different. I say um, Chinese sounds good tonight. Like Chinese food sounds good tonight. That's my first thought of a string of ideas and options that might be coming after that. Versus my husband will say, Chinese sounds good to me tonight. That means I have thought through all of my options,
And you've
and this
decided.
is what I've decided that would be a good thing for this evening.
That's really
And
interesting.
right, and so it's like, oh yeah, no, I am a talk to thinker,
Hmm.
where I have to verbally process the whole thing out before I've come to the conclusion.
Very often, we're making a decision on dinner conversation kind of takes a similar course, and I just had never really thought about where the heck is the brush that had the paint on it. That was not the thing that happens in those conversations. I think it's this one. Yes. Okay, great.
There goes that linear thought that I was talking
Uh-huh,
about.
uh-huh. But yeah, it's so often the difference between, I think if I said, I think I'm in the mood for Chinese tonight, it would be, yeah, it would probably be the start of
Of
the thought
yeah,
process for
mhm,
me, and it would be taken as an edict,
yeah,
and I'll have to backtrack and say, like, no, no, I'm like open to other things.
exactly.
So I appreciate this insight. I think it's gonna be very valuable. Get a lot out of painting from life sessions.
Yep. Hopefully that's the case for everyone.
I suspect so.
Todd has clarified that in the book that he was reading about Sargent, where a firsthand account was saying that he works out from the midtones, it was implying that he masked in the head with midtones.
Yep.
So do you, when you hear that, Lily, do you kind of think in terms of like sneaking up on the darks? Like you might be thinking in terms of the darks, but not necessarily jumping to your darkest value, or what would your interpretation of that be?
My interpretation of that is when you mass in, like this whole area, for example, here,
Mhm.
here, here, I would mass in all a middle tone
Mhm.
after the drawing had been set, is how when you're massing it in, it just means that you're putting down one value for the light, one value for the dark. And then once you've got going there, you start going lighter and going darker towards the or you're going lighter towards the lightless facing plane.
Mhm.
And, because it's the midtone, then it's already sort of married towards the shadow. So it helps unify the color. And so I think that's,
Kind of compress the value structure.
yeah.
So if I were theoretically going to apply this to this painting where I just made a mistake that I knew was a mistake, but hubris led me to try anyway.
Oh, hubris.
Is that like a thing that I could start to apply to this painting, or would that require me to theoretically have taken a different approach right from the start?
No, I think you can absolutely apply it to this painting because you've got sort of your shadow shapes, then you mask in all of the light as a midtone.
Okay, that that makes sense, and that's kind of what I was thinking too. I'm actually really curious, Todd, what book you're reading. I'm also
Yeah,
kind of curious to hear about like Shane's scholarship around this because I know he's the guy, the
yeah,
Sargent guy, and I'll be honest, I've really shirked my responsibilities as like a Sargent devotee and haven't kept myself abreast of like all the all the research and work that Shane's been putting in.
yeah.
So the book was by Evan Sharkey. I'm not sure how you pronounce the last name. And that is the first break.
Okay.
So we will be back in just a few minutes. Be sure to write in with more of your questions. And thank you so much for joining us this evening.
I'll let Emma announce us before I continue.
We are back, everyone. Thank you so much for your patience.
So we were just talking about short pose, figurative work,
Oops.
because it is one of Mike's favorites. And yeah, I feel like with short pose, I would run into that same challenge where I would start to get self-conscious about coming up with an interesting pose or a novel pose, which is kind of funny because as an artist, like I understand that you don't necessarily need a lot of variety. You can make a slight pose adjustment, and so long as it's comfortable, there's no problem. But
Mm-hmm.
no, I could see having fun with that for sure. So during the break, I softened some of my not so great marks, and I'm feeling better about where my block-in is sitting right now.
That's good.
Yeah, I'm feeling surprisingly strained about. I don't know. Usually, I like really jump the gun, and I'm already in color by the end of the first pose. So I feel like I'm being strangely patient.
Look at you. I always tell people I'm a slow starter, but a strong anchor. I try to I find myself like slowly getting everything lined up and in what may be the right spot,
Mm-hmm.
and but then like a speed up near the end to get things moving.
I think that's very true of more classical, academically trained painters in general. Like it's a relatively slower start, but then it gets very exciting at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the like alla prima bravura,
Mm-hmm.
Richard Schmidt-esque people or the Mary Chins of the world have a very exciting start.
Yeah,
And
and there's just like a refinement.
yeah, exactly. It
The
becomes
Rose
less sexy as
Franson.
you go along.
Yeah, it's fun to watch Mary and like Rose Franson and those kind of people paint though at the beginning because they just like dance,
I know, it's so
around
kinetic.
the whole process.
Chelsea, about that Sargent book, Todd says that it was a library book, but I photocopied those pages, and if she wants, I will take pictures and send them to her via email or
Oh,
Instagram.
isn't
I
that
would love
nice?
that. Yes, please do, Todd. I really appreciate that. And whenever you send that to me, I'd say Instagram is probably like the simplest bet. Um, but if it's easier for you, my email is just chelsea@chelsealang.com. Um, I would also love to hear if there's like a particular thing that I've put out lately that you've enjoyed, since you had mentioned at the top that you've just been enjoying what I've been,
Yeah, get the
putting
feedback.
out in the world lately. I'd love to hear what's been resonating for you.
We've also had someone mention that it's their first time here.
Oh, that's fun.
Welcome.
Yeah, we're so glad you're joining us. And then this is a fun question. Lou says, I'm about to participate in my first in-person Portrait from Life competition at the Old Lyme Academy.
Oh,
Any
fun.
advice for a rookie?
Ooh.
Oh, man. I don't know nearly as much about Lyme, so I'm kind of curious what your wisdom would be, Louie.
Well, I know that it's easy to get in your own head because you're going to be around a lot of really awesome artists. Um, and I mean, it's hard to not say this because, like, don't get in your own head is like saying don't think about the thing that you're not supposed to think about. And
Like, don't think about pink elephants or whatever.
exactly. And then you start thinking about it. Um, but I think the best thing is just to have a lot of fun being around a lot of incredible people, and Old Lyme is just a wonderful, wonderful school, and have, Alex and Divya are there, which are old East Oaks people, and I think that they, it's just enjoy the experience of being around a lot of artists.
I think that's a great piece of wisdom. And I feel like I've told this story like too many times, but I do think it's very specific to this question. So I will happily share this anecdote one more time, which is the very first time I came to paint here. It was the first time I was really meeting any of you. I had met Divya once before. I had said hi to Alex once before, but I really didn't know anybody. And I hadn't met you before, Louis.
Mm.
Um, and so coming in, I had no idea what to expect. I had no idea how like friendly and warm and welcoming everyone would be. Um, so one of the first things that happened was I'm setting up next to Alex and Natia, whom you'll probably be set up somewhere for this particular competition. And Alex just quietly expressed that he was nervous to paint next to me because I'm a faster painter than him. And I was like, first of all, how do you even know who I am? Like, who am I next to you? But it really just like put me at ease in such a tremendous way. And I think it just goes to show that as much respect as you have for the people that you're going to be painting next to, um, they don't be surprised if like they already know who you are and have their own feelings about being up there next to you.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I don't know when I'll stop doing that as a pride, but like Alex Venezia of all people was intimidated to be painting next to me.
Yeah, that's one to keep in the back of your mind on those days of doubt.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
We have someone from Ireland, from Waterford, Ireland, saying hello and thank you. Are you going to add color? What color palette are you using?
I am definitely going to be adding color. I imagine Louis is as well.
Mhm.
I'm being unusually restrained in my avoiding of diving into color the way I want to really early. But my palette, I have titanium white, yellow ochre, terra rosa, transparent oxide red, transparent oxide brown. Um, because all these colors are sorry, the next color I have is called ruby red, but in other brands it would be permanent rose. And then Viridian and Ultramarine. And then I have a little bit of Gamsol that I've used for the early layers. But then as soon as I have a covering on my canvas, I have Gamblin solvent-free gel as my medium in case anyone is curious about the medium in addition to the colors.
I have, let's see, Naples yellow, alizarin crimson, lead white, mixed with a little bit of titanium white, manganese violet, and ultramarine blue, cobalt blue, oxide red and yellow, and raw sienna. And that's about it. So every now and again, I'll pull an accent color out. But yeah, at this stage, I'm just trying to get everything lined up, and not everything's lined up yet. So color will happen. It's just usually happens a little bit later once I've gotten everything figured out.
This is really sweet. Lou says, "They will know who I am, not because I'm well known, but because I went last weekend to scope it out and geek out over the figurative sketches. Thank you both for your wisdom."
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Good luck, Lou. I hope you really enjoy it and have a great time.
And then said, "The anatomy instructor let me in after I loitered outside in the rain like a lost dog for a half hour."
I've had my share of those kinds of experiences with people that I've looked up to. So you're, if I dare say so myself, you're in good company.
I'm so used to like painting with the head sort of level. I keep pushing everything down too much. Push everything back up. It's amazing.
Yeah, I had a class where this is with Mildred Hankinson.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking about these kind of like Loomis proportions for heads. And yeah, it's all assuming that the head is level. And very quickly, when we were doing homework for that class, the question occurred to me of like, well, what happens when it isn't? And the answer is you kind of got to trust that you can eyeball it, which was a difficult pill to swallow.
Yeah, you trust your ability to create or find the right shapes, and but I mean, there's still ways to like gather the right information. But yeah, you can't rely on any formulaic nature of things, which is why I always actually measure instead of just believe it, because everyone's
Interesting.
just ever so slightly different.
I never
And
measure and always believe it. Okay, maybe I don't believe it at some points, but yeah, I never. The only thing I might measure in a painting from life, and this is measure in like a very loose sense of the word, is I might use like a viewfinder just to help with placement of the model on the canvas, and then that's it. Now, if this were still life, I would be in trouble.
oh, that's so interesting.
Yeah, but it's kind of a constant, just sort of like a gut check. I think because when I was at the atelier, we kind of were just taking a barred approach where we weren't ever really measuring. We were just stepping back and checking. And that was really, in the time that I was there, that was really the only measuring approach that we really,
Wait, what did I tell you?
the one in Southern Pines.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot.
Yeah, that was really the only thing that we got to before my like session was over. So yeah, I just wasn't really trained in anything else. And after that, I took a much less like classical approach and sort of threw it all out a little bit. Not all of it, but a lot of it.
Sheila from Ireland, who had asked about the palettes, said, "Thank you. Great to hear the different palettes. What a wonderful opportunity to watch you both paint."
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, sweet.
I'm glad that you mentioned that thing about everything getting pulled down though. 'Cause let me fix something on his nose. I don't know if I like that mark. Okay.
I'm gonna have to pull that out for a second. So I got that wrong.
So usually when I'm kind of at like this stage, I'm operating just with the thought process of like, what is the most distracting thing to me? Or do you kind of operate in the same way when you're at the block in?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And that's just probably because I'm just like so ADD about not at all, you know, is that I'm just trying to lock in on a few things that I'm going to say are true.
Mhm.
Um, and so, yeah, but
Challenges with
that's,
the transparent oxides is that once you have some down, darkening it is really difficult because it wants to just wipe away. And all I want is to like darken. There we go. That one mark. I think I cut you off. I'm sorry.
no, I was just working on something, so it wasn't a big deal.
I don't like that mark. See, that one makes it better.
Mike, I think you need to bring your head down just a touch. All right, thank you. Just, yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Vesper is asking, how would you handle values that are similar, aka the brighter side of the face?
Hopefully, my actual painting bears this out, and you don't hear my answer and go, "Really?" I let all of it compress together in this stage. I'm really not trying to render anything on this side. If you see me getting into it, it's because I have succumbed to temptation in a way that I do not want to. Um, but in a perfect world, the stage, and you can see it looks like I've like established midtone in here. That's not true. I just had drawing errors and I wiped them away and it stained the canvas a little bit. And so I just unified it. But in a perfect world, I would have all of my modeling happening. Actually, now that I'm about to commit to saying this out loud, I'm second guessing what I'm about to say. Um, right now, I am thinking about creating a little bit more depth and variety in the darks. And then as soon as I move on from the darks and I start establishing midtones, I'm going to essentially change my approach. But in general, you want to pick, if you are thinking in terms of a two value structure, as in you have lights and darks, you are not thinking about a third midtone value. Um, paintings tend to look more elegant, like you have made better curatorial decisions when one of them is pressed and the other is allowed to have more variety and information. And in most like traditionally lit paintings, not impressionistic paintings, but like something like the pose we have here, what would be most intuitive for most painters would be to flatten all of the darks and allow there to be modeling in the lights. And the midtones would also be grouped in with the lights as a result. And so right now, I'm treating the lights as being flat because the canvas is what we stand in for the lights. I have a little bit of a hierarchy in the darks. But then as soon as I actually start to establish the lights, so the midtone and the light areas, I should really be thinking about the darks as being flat. Um, we'll see if my choice to create a little bit more of a hierarchy in the darks bites me in the butt, but to the best of my knowledge, that is theoretically how you would think through that challenge. Hopefully that actually answers your question. I kind of let it get away from me there.
Sorry, we muted it for just a moment while we took a look at what Chelsea's audio issue was. Let us know if it's sounding any better.
I guess I should talk or something so that people can actually weigh in on that. If anyone else is hearing something exactly, that might actually help us to troubleshoot it. But if I sound good, that knowledge is also probably pretty useful.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're sounding good to me, but do let us know in the comments if there's an issue. Evie's watching. She
Hey,
said,
Evie.
looking great, y'all. Sorry to miss you tonight.
I'm sorry to miss you. I hope you're feeling better.
Evie was going to join us this evening, but she felt a bit under the weather. Yeah, it's always the question, right?
Yeah.
Pushing and pulling the drawing. You know, when you're working with oil, is always a bit of the challenge.
Yeah. Oh, that's just too big of a tool for what I want to do.
Vesper, who was asking about handling the lights, said, yes, because when I'm doing photo references as my guide, sometimes it can be too flat and I have to put some value color on it so I can work with it and then find the right color after, but kind of similar.
Gotcha. Yeah. And as you can see here, like chances are none of these darks that I'm establishing are actually going to be the right color, but as long as they can be a good stand-in for the values, I should be okay. Why so jarring hearing the birds just through the wall?
Man, I
Because
love my birds. Yeah. And I love the springtime because I'm an early riser, and when I get up at and I'm like sipping coffee at like 5, the birds are out there just singing their hearts out. And so it's just such a lovely, lovely experience in the mornings.
Kata said that the audio is still coming and going. We've got 2 more minutes before the break, and then we can take a closer look at what's going on.
thank you for letting us know.
Yeah, appreciate that. I hate that that's happening because I can't see things on my end, but I'm going to try to figure it out on the break.
I was going to make a joke about how you're the man who never sleeps, but I feel like this isn't like,
Honey?
yeah, not funny on a day when you haven't gotten like sleep.
Yeah, it was a rough night last night, but you know, they happen. That's just part of life. But no, ain't no big thing. You can't laugh it off. You know, life would be very long if you couldn't laugh it off a little bit.
Kat says, same here. The birds are the loudest at 5 a.m. Love it.
Yeah, they're the best.
I think, wow, I can't believe I've been avoiding color for 2 sessions. I think I'm like
Look at
growing.
you.
I know.
Don't let me rub off on you now, Chels.
I know. This needs to shift.
I need to get one of those little squeegee tools you've got because
It's
that
so
would help.
nice.
they'll help when I'm like trying to erase. I just have to like erase with a little bit of Gamsol, you know. So
They are super, super handy. Yeah, I
if this doesn't
like
turn
it a
out, I'll
lot.
blame it on that.
Yep. Well, I mean, I could just hand it to you, and then you
Good, but then I
can't.
can't blame them.
Yeah,
Blame it
I
on
got it.
something.
Yeah.
All right, it is time for another model break. So we will be back in 5 minutes.
And I'll see about that audio. Figure it out.
All right, sounds good. All right, we are back, everyone. And again, let us know about the audio issues. We played around with some of the back end, so we'll see if that helps. There's also, it's been picking up some noise from Lewis as he's cleaning his brushes, so I don't know if that could have something to do with it or not, but just let us know how it sounds.
Yeah, and definitely if other folks are listening and they don't hear anything amiss, that is also very helpful information.
Yeah,
Don't
that
hesitate
can.
to chime in just to say, everything sounds fine to me.
Yeah, that's a good point, Chelsea. Thank you.
Yeah. I run enough live webinars
Yeah.
where enough people will say they can't see or hear me to know this real well.
Yep. That's the truth.
Actually, someone else has written in saying, I love watching you paint and learning. This has been a challenge for me because the sound is really rough and it drops words.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you for chiming in.
All right, we'll see if that fixes everything.
Does this fix everything? Let us know. As I'm sitting here talking, I can monologue. It's not a tall order for me. So if you hear words cutting out, or if I sound crystal clear, either way, tell us.
Kat says, so far, so good.
Okay, cool.
Although then someone else says slightly warbly on my end.
Man.
Should you like my best whistle, my best warble?
Maybe that was just the bird and, outside.
That would be really funny.
Love a good warble.
Not a good enough whistler to have a good warble. All right.
Okay, we've got it's okay now.
Okay.
Okay, I think I might have fixed it with the. Sometimes they have an echo suppression and like background noise suppression that they build into it, the program and the software. But sometimes it just doesn't. It makes it worse. So you just have to kind of play it by ear.
Literally.
That was awesome.
Incredible.
Perfect timing.
Lou says, shout out to your lovely models, Beard, for incentivizing me to buy one of those ridiculous frayed Comer-esque brushes that Daniel Keyes uses.
Hell yeah. Man, yeah, those combers, they have quite the learning curve. So hats off to you for adventuring in with those. Man, okay.
Yes, Kat, this will be recorded and up on our YouTube, so you can tune back in whenever you get the chance and watch the rest of it if you have to leave early.
I hate that you had to leave early. Sad.
Will the recorded version be in like 4K or 1080p?
Of this?
Yeah.
No, I think it's just the broadcast got switched over.
Okay.
So, but they don't know about it.
It'll be our secret for anyone who is watching right now.
Exactly.
I've reached the really fun part of the painting where my entire palette is sitting in glare and I have to do
Uh-oh.
like yoga poses to
You can tilt it towards you, and it'll probably get rid of some of it.
do you
Oh, the palette.
Yeah.
Gotcha, the palette. Yeah.
so I'm
You have to either tilt it up or all the way down
yeah.
for it to get rid of it. Yeah.
Yep. I will probably do some of that in
Yep.
the next break. But in the meantime, for anyone who sees me in the wide shot, I'm doing weird lunges backward. Y'all know why now.
That's right.
I gave them a good shot at that, Chelsea. Don't worry.
Perfect. Thanks. You got me.
All right, I think it is time for, it's like you get to a point where you feel like you got enough in to figure out the rest of the drawing later.
That's such a nice moment.
Or a moment where you're just like, well, we got to move forward. This is timed thing. We'll figure the rest out later.
That's like part of what I enjoy so much about these painting from life sessions, and of course, like working with models generally, especially when you are painting with other people, is, I don't know, kind of reminds me of the, I'm probably going to get the culture all wrong on this, but the monks who do like the sand paintings, where like it's like a team of monks and they're working on this thing for like months and months and months, and the moment it's finished, all of it gets wiped away.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
I think there's something really kind of like peaceful and nice about that idea that we get to embody when the clock is running. You can't get too caught up in perfectionism or making it turn out exactly one way or another. You kind of have to go with the flow more.
Yep.
And that's sort of freeing. Actually, that's really freeing. I understand that, I have a lot of students who like really feel crippled by perfectionism, which is especially challenging when you're trying to paint loosely. Trying to be loose and perfectionism at the same time, and trying to paint loosely in a perfect way seems kind of like an oxymoron. And that paradox is certainly real, but if you are comfortable enough to, oh man, there's just no good angle for this now.
Oh, no.
That's fine. I found one. I just have to move again. Yeah, like once you get a certain skill set, it's usually when it's easier to kind of embrace that mindset. But I know it can be really difficult up until that point.
I'm going to keep those monks in mind, Chelsea, next time I'm doing alla prima. I like that.
Thanks. I hope it helps.
Todd is wondering, what are y'all's thoughts on the Art Renewal Center AI controversy? I think you talked about this last time a little bit.
We talked about it.
I think with Caroline.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
that's what it was. Yeah.
I think so.
What was the kind of TLDR Reader's Digest version of the conversation with Caroline?
I can't recall exactly what the sort of TLDR part was or the gist of it. But what I would say is that there are certain aspects of it that, the AI situation is not going to go away. It's going to get to a point where, it won't even be able to be policed or regulated when it comes to trying to figure out whether people are using it as a reference tool or not. Obviously, I don't think anyone is under the mindset that you should pass it off as the actual image is your own work. For the very for all the reasons that it was a big deal with ARC, because then the person had to like paint the actual painting for it to be, because it won a purchase award, they had to actually paint the painting. And, you know, they couldn't even necessarily paint the painting quite like it was supposed to be. So it's like, whether you're using it as a way to have a reference or in when you're painting in general, I would say that that's not going to be something that anyone's going to be able to police in the future.
Yeah.
So it's going to get so good that no one's going to be able to recognize it. So in that sense, that you have to go, okay, well then there's going to be a certain level of like embracing some of these things. And so I'm of the mindset that just like photography was an uproar at one point and an outrage at one point, I think AI is going to have an ethical way you can use it and an unethical way you can use it. And I think that goes to anything. That goes to how you're influenced by other people's work, and whether or not you are creating, something that looks just like somebody else's work versus kind of creating your own original thing. Like, you can think of all sorts of different ways that there's an ethical way to be influenced by other people's work, and then there's a non-ethical way. And it's good. There's room for both. What do you think, Chels?
I think it's interesting. I have kind of gone from having to explicitly ask my students not to use it because I feel that it's like shortchanging their education.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really important to learn to work with models and pose models and compose images and think about props and costuming and lighting. And if you reach right for AI, one, AI as it stands right now won't give you the level of control that you really need, which is one problem. But I mean, ultimately, I think it kind of creates this dependency. When I talk to artists that I work with who have come to me because they feel really reliant on something like a grid or a projector or a proportional divider, or using a pencil underdrawing or a transfer method, one of the things that I'm like very quick to explain to them is that I'm not here to judge that choice. I think it is overall like morally neutral. I think the problem comes up when you have to use it every time.
Yeah.
When you're like, oh,
You
I don't
can't
have
go
my
without it.
projector, the model's sitting here from life, I'm going to go to pieces.
Yeah.
I can't do this. I need to leave. I need to just go back to my studio where I have control over how I establish the composition and the drawing. I think that's where we really run into trouble as painters. Wow, I have this like weird Julius Caesar thing happening by putting these two marks on here. I'm glad you see it too. All right, so I need to do something to fix that. Or just be patient. No, patience is no, that's not what we're doing. So the question becomes, like, I think what's going to inevitably happen is that at some point in the future, I'm probably going to have to tell my students, like, yes, you can use it, but we need to make it so that you're not dependent upon it. Maybe it's something that you would use later on in the journey after you have proven that to yourself that you can comfortably compose an image without the help of AI. You can get a good reference image without the help of AI.
Yeah. I think it's good.
Man, I'm running into this issue where I want to design the background in an interesting way. And it's funny that we're sitting here talking about being inspired by other painters, because I am actively looking into painting with really interesting background design. And I am trying to synthesize, like, what is it about this background that I'm responding to that I can use, while also, you know, making this my own and not just like think of this as just taking from my inspiration.
Chelsea, can you talk more about what it is that you're responding to?
Yeah, so I don't know if there's a camera on this, but I pulled up a Clayton Beck painting that I saw on Instagram earlier today, where he had literally said, like, don't forget to design your backgrounds. And yeah, this piece had a really beautiful background design. And I think one of my biggest like self-critiques from last time I was here, you know, when I'm normally in my studio, I will actually spend time mocking up an image and coming up with different background designs, even for just abstract kind of improvisational looking brushwork. And here I'm not able to do that pre-planning. You know, it's like the beauty of working from life is that I need to respond to what's happening in front of me versus being able to like really rigidly control everything that's happening. But even though I don't have like a mock-up or something where I've sort of thought through every possible design choice I could be making in that background, I can absolutely still have inspiration pulled up. So I'm taking a look at his painting down here, and asking myself, looking between my canvas, the model, and this image on my phone, like, what is it about this that I'm responding to? What would it look like to take some of the key ideas from this and be inspired by it without simply replicating aspects of this? And main things I'm seeing here, there's a lot of like kinetic features of the brush marks. I can kind of imagine the hand of the artist. Speaking of which, I really didn't like that mark that I made.
Are you able to hold up that image in front of your panel just for a moment so
Yeah.
people can see?
Oh man, I'm gonna really hate putting this side by side with my painting. So I don't know if this is in frame. Great.
Yep, that's
So this
perfect.
is Clayton's painting, and I just like, I love the way he handled this background. It's so beautiful. I believe he and I have not the same palette per se, but being influenced by Richard Schmid, I know that he's going to use a lot of transparent pigments, and I think these are, you know, being used to full effect in this background design. And there's just such a lovely like shape and flow to this, and such a variety in the mark making. And so I have this, you know, sitting up on my easel. I know it's out of frame for you all, but I'm just trying to look at some of like the sweeping marks that he's made in this piece, and noticing the variety in his color choices. And one thing I probably need to do here is vary some of my brush sizes and maybe brush shapes, maybe bristle type, and just see what I can create that's like along similar lines. One actual interesting thing might be to see what a fan brush can do with something like this. This is an experiment. We will see. I think that's a little bit too like fanned out, but Oh, that's some cool stuff.
Oh man.
Yeah. And that is one of the nice things about painting from life, is that you're kind of forced to just try stuff and not like control everything. Okay, that's like enough that there's some background there. So now let's actually like put color in his face. What do y'all think?
I think so.
Great.
Go for it.
Thank you. You're always so encouraging. I appreciate you so much.
Todd said, "Gotta bounce. Great job, you guys."
Oh,
Thanks so much for hanging around,
fun,
Todd. I
Todd.
appreciate it.
He sent you a warning shot DM, Chelsea.
Okay, great. That sounds so like foreboding and ominous. I love it.
Shots fired.
You know, it's so interesting looking at his skin tones. I was literally just working on this Sargent master copy where I was like, all my skin tones are too pink in this, and I need to work to bring up the greens and the yellows. And I look at his flesh tone now, and I'm like, damn, it is pink in these lights. And I just had this whole talk with myself about how I really need to dial back my impulse to just reach for like Terra Rosa as the dominant color. And yet I think that's exactly what's going to happen.
That's okay. You know, if
Yeah.
it's there and you see it, then that's the more important thing.
Yeah. One of the like interesting things I realized from being in like this space specifically is the light is obviously not the exact same on the model as it is on our easels, which makes sense. Like, I don't want this raking
Yeah.
light across my
Sure.
easel for sure. But in my studio, because I'm usually working off of a photo reference, my reference sits here, my painting sits here, and so it's really easy to just go back and forth and be absolutely confident that I have the correct color.
Yep.
But holding this up over the model, there's kind of this little bit of like, well, yeah, it matches, but when I take the painting out of the space, am I going to regret all of my life's choices? How do you deal with that? Are you holding your brush up to check color, or are you a little bit more like seat of pantsing it?
No, yeah, I don't. I mean, there's some times where I'll check color, but often the way I paint is more of just like trying to play with the relationships, because then you can work with like tonal harmony and you can do something totally different from what you see if you want to do that.
I cannot believe that we have like complementary drawing and color approaches where you're like drawing,
Yeah.
got to measure all
Yeah,
day,
yeah,
and I'm like,
yeah.
I don't know, I just kind of like
Yeah, we
wing
have
it.
our own things we wing, right? That's a good point.
Lou says, "I'm having the same experience. Left side in the photo is a perfect pale rose blush match."
I would say, granted, I'm sure your photo is still a little bit different from what we're seeing. I think that if you're matching it to the photo and you like the colors in the photo, then the answer is go for it.
Yep.
This is like one of the biggest things that I wind up like harping on with my students, is that they'll be working on a piece and they'll be checking the color in some areas and then just decide to like change it in others, and then, you know, feel like something in the color isn't working because they've intentionally deviated from the harmony. And so what I always tell them is, unless they're you and they're super, super comfortable playing with color, which isn't typically the case, To the best of my knowledge, I'm not teaching anyone who is you. It is better to, in the name of like feeling really confident with color, just match it. Like just get used to being able to replicate the color. And once that's on autopilot, then you can start playing if that's where you want to go.
Yeah. So I look at that in the sense that like that's a great place to start because then it gives people an anchor point. And it's the same way that like I think when you give person an anchor point such as like say site size or some tool of investigation because it has its limitations over a certain period. It's a great place to like have them start learning and understanding how to create color and what to do there. So like for example, is there'll be times where you won't have the color available that you actually are trying to match. Like we were talking about earlier, your lighting situation might be off.
Yeah.
Where your highlight might be not the white of the light, right?
Yeah.
And so we don't have often the ability to adjust that. So we have to understand how to create the relationship and associations in order for to compensate for it. So so it's like excellent way to start, but ultimately you will be at an advantage if you can figure out how to truly understand, the warm, cool relationships and how they're going to play with each other, so that if you want to go super chromatic, because I think a lot of people I'm trying to get them to push more chroma for the purpose that they are so used to being so muted that they have a hard time seeing the color, like literally us, like we're seeing the color up here. And so sometimes you have to push it so people can see it. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, and then everything starts clicking into place,
Yeah.
On that note, it is time for another model break.
Oh, good.
So
I
we
think I
will
was
be
about
back
to make
shortly.
a mistake. So
You're welcome, Chelsea. We are back. Thank you so much for tuning in.
So, what were you saying about AI? We were talking about, everyone, while we're on break. Our model made a great point about just like some copyright stuff. And Chelsea was making a comment in that light and concerning about AI. So,
Yeah, I think there's going to be an interesting question when it comes to competitions about people starting to generate reference for these competitions. I mean, I think it is going to quickly become apparent if you are entering these judge shows where the physical piece is going to be inspected. But yeah, like what happens when I'm like, oh, I need an image of a model and I have a very specific look that I'm going for,
yeah,
and I
and
don't
models
know
are
any,
expensive.
and models are expensive, and I don't know anyone who has this look. And if you already have some comfort being able to adjust your reference and, you know, do some like Photoshop wizardry and all this stuff, what role is that ultimately going to play in these competitions?
Yeah.
And I'm curious how that will play out.
Yeah, because we were talking about an example of where an image from a very prominent magazine was used for a competition by an artist in a more local competition, where would that be okay to enter something that was a painting that was a painting of that was referred back to a very known photo. And, you know, at least in my experience as being a juror, absolutely not. It would be a disqualifying thing because most competitions are going to say it needs to be an original
Reference or
Thank you.
composition.
I'm just having such a hard time talking and painting tonight.
Oh, I feel that. There was like a moment earlier where you took over while I was working on something. I was like, oh, thank God.
So anyway, it's going to be like we were talking about earlier. It's going to be very difficult to police in the future, and at the same time, I don't necessarily think that it's going to be unethical as long as it's done properly. You know, I have judged recent competitions where there was a piece that was entered that was under question. And ultimately, I mean, it seemed very clear to me that knowing some of the things that I have seen on like Midjourney, which is a generative image generating AI, that that it was possible that it was done from there. And at that moment, our bylaws were saying that that was not allowed. So we had to, just because we were questioning it, we had to say, well, this time around, we cannot say or put our name behind it saying that this is going to be okay. So that being said, is in the future, you know, if it's written out, I would just say make sure that whatever you're painting, whatever the reference is, don't use a single reference. Number one, use multiple, and make it unique enough and with your hand enough to where people won't be able to immediately go, oh, that was actually made by this generative AI in a very specific one, because I know I can look at some of those images and go, that one was made by DALL-E, that one was made by Midjourney. And so if I can do that,
Yeah.
then it's not far enough removed.
So what are some examples of like, you know, if that artist happened to be watching our live stream right now, what are some things that they could have done on those paintings that would have potentially exempted it from that kind of scrutiny? Is it just about the brushwork?
No.
Was it?
No, it was the subject matter, and the subject matter seemed very derivative of things that I had already seen on there, and I think that in the future it would have been accepted if once we have much more clear understandings of what our parameters are. But considering that we weren't clear on what some of our more specifics were, we made an executive decision to say this time around,
Yeah.
we cannot.
In good conscience.
Especially since other people are working so hard to create their own original work. It's not fair to them at this stage where we don't have a clear grasp of what we can put our name behind, that we need to decide to like shelf that for the future to figure it out. So make sure that we are being very intentional and clear to people of what is expected of them. What session are we on, by the way? I haven't even asked that question. How many sessions we have left?
Oh, okay. So it's 7:47 right now. And so we have an hour and 15 minutes left. Someone do the math.
Okay.
That's fine.
Yeah, that's several more sessions.
Several more.
That's about as good as my math's going to be right at this moment.
Yeah. Don't ask us to do math.
Paint, math, and talk.
Dance monkey. Oh my gosh. Okay.
It's funny. I'm sure that most of you are aware of Neil deGrasse Tyson. He is a astrophysicist that works out of New York Natural History Museum and has his own podcast and all sorts of stuff. And he was on somebody else's, or it might have been a lecture or something, and somebody asked, who has been the greatest mind, of, I don't know, it's just like of all time, and or as far as a scientist or something is concerned. And he said, like, hands down, without a doubt, like not even competition, Isaac Newton. And so the guy's like, really? So like considering all the people like Einstein and all those kind of people, he goes, so Newton was, at his home, and somebody would say, hey, just by himself, he figured out that first he figured out about gravity, right? And that gravity not only existed, but then like wrote out mathematical equations about how gravity worked. Then he understood about how like light worked, and that light was a spectrum, and figured out how it split, and then sort of the math behind how that worked. And then somebody said, you have like all of these planets moving, because he figured out how all the planets were moving in an ellipse or in our solar system. And he was like, how, somebody asked, well, how's that happen? He goes, I'll get back to you. And about 3 months later, he had to derive an entirely new form of mathematics, which ended up being calculus, on his own. He did all of those things, and I think it was like 2 more, he said, all of those things within like 2 years.
Wow.
And then he turned 26.
Okay, that's just gross, frankly.
I was like, all right, point taken. I am no Newton. Not that I even suspected that I would be such a genius, but yes, I thought that was wild.
It is wild. That's objectively wild.
Andrea says, hello from Florida. Love this model.
Yeah, he's great. Woo, Mike.
And Jackson says, tuning in from Grand Rapids, loving the conversation.
Nice. Glad to have you here.
Man, I was working just this week on this Sargent copy, and I was also looking at a Jamie Korth piece. It was just a block-in of a painting.
Mm-hmm.
But the way he handled the block-in, I could like really see the through line to the Sargent piece. And so I'm working on the Sargent master copy, and I have Jamie's piece pulled up at the same time. And I work on the master copy, and I'm thinking about Jamie's painting, and I'm like, okay, next time I'm like here at Painting from Life, I want to work on applying what I was practicing in this master copy to my Painting from Life effort. And it just occurred to me that I have been doing not that. And it has to do with like this stage.
It's funny how sometimes we'll just like get on our autopilot though, because we're
Yeah.
caught up in our own.
And like,
thing.
funnily enough, I don't think I'm doing anything bad. I'm just
No,
not
you're just-
practicing
The thing.
that
Yeah.
I was trying to get better into muscle memory.
Totally.
But it also might not be too late,
Never.
because this had to do with he had gotten it to this stage once he had masked in all of his color, and I still am not there. So maybe this is not inherently off track, but
Got this, Chels.
thank you.
Kat says, I just have to say your channel/YouTube videos are among my favorites.
Oh, thank you.
The dialogue is calming, encouraging, relevant, useful, and extremely valuable. That is so kind.
That is so kind. Okay, we'll do a couple hundred more. Be like in my 90s. Still doing Painting from Life. Chelsea be next to me.
Yes. All right, it's a date.
Let's do it.
Y'all, please hold Lewis to his word, because I want more opportunities to get to come here and do this with you all.
In her 90s too.
Yes.
Lou says, I studied mathematics and computer science in college. I never comprehended how to paint for real until I took calculus and number theory classes.
What? Okay,
That is
I
crazy.
need an
That's really
explanation.
crazy.
That is really cool, and you're not gonna get let off the hook.
Yeah. Without telling us more about that.
Exactly. I want to understand what it was that clicked for you there.
I want to know, can you show me? Sorry. Just busting out in some Disney, like one does.
Easy way to get demonetized.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Only if you're,
Glad
in
we're not
tune
being
enough.
not monetized, so.
All right, so I just broke a rule out of sheer laziness, which is I've been trying to really sneak up on my lights, because if I'm starting with the white of the canvas as my placeholder for all the lights, if I just progress from like the darkest values lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter, everything will make sense. But like right now, for instance,
That's a very Sean Cheatham way of painting.
yeah, right now, I went ahead and like connected these two shapes with the light area. I saw a similar value was repeated up here, but all the values around it should be darker.
Mm-hmm.
And so right now, there's like this weird sort of illogical place in the painting where this, it just doesn't read very intuitively.
Okay.
So for anyone watching, just know that I think it does actually help you quite a bit if you're working on a white canvas or a canvas with a very light tone, to work dark to light, or else you're going to go through this awkward period where it just doesn't make visual sense. You can't kind of look at the image at a glance and tell if it's reading correctly. There, I did not check that color at all, and we're gonna see if that bites me in the butt.
Just gonna go for it.
Yeah.
Lou says, "Oh gosh, where do I start?"
All right.
Yeah.
Well, we're
the
listening.
beginning of calculus. That's where you start.
I had delusions of getting a computer science major in college, and all the calculus, like all the freshman calculus classes, were at 8 a.m.
And that was your reason for not going?
Yeah,
Or
I
not
did
doing
one
it?
semester and didn't do well in the class because I kept sleeping through it. It was like the only class that I wouldn't go to, like, consistently. Eked by, despite doing like just fine in math in high school. And then quickly was like, okay, that's it.
No more of that.
Yeah, like that dream is over.
We were actually talking about, I think it was yesterday, Fina modeled for us yesterday. And we were talking about when we would be in class in college, I had an art history teacher. I think could have been a different conversation, you know, I'm getting old, I don't know. I think it was yesterday. But we were talking about being in class and having to do things in order to like stay awake or to like pay attention. And for me, my art history teacher was the best teacher. He was great. I loved him, Dr. Dewey. However, his voice was the perfect resonance. And you're in a dark room of whatever sound machine can like drift me to sleep. On top of the fact that we had those slide things,
That's
the projectors, and they're and it was right next to me humming, and it would be a dark room. Well, that was just like the kiss
I
of
remember
death.
those days.
And so I remember being in his class, and I would have to like do origami in his class because we didn't have fidget spinners then, but that was the way that I like stayed awake in class. Was this the conversation where? No, it must have been.
No, I wasn't there for it.
Okay, I think I might have gotten my wires crossed on where I was having this conversation, but it was a good one because somebody else was like making fun of some other scenario that was similar to that, and I was like, well, actually, no, that's a thing. You have to be able to. Oh, it was Joe and Samantha earlier that day because Samantha was saying that she was at church while they were like listening to like the minister. She was like doing drawing, and there were other people that were like crocheting, and they were saying something like, "Oh, was that even allowed?" And I was like, "Actually, I would always pay attention better if I had something like that going for me."
Yeah.
Okay, this is great. Lou writes, "Instead of sending my thesis essay, I'll say this. It's hard to paint what you see and know if you are blind to the larger, more divine, perfectly proportioned and ordered and harmonious cosmology."
Oh. So is there like, I don't mean to ask you to write a thesis, Lou, but was there like a particular thing that clicked for you artistically that you can tie back to a single kind of simple, I don't know, tidbit that you picked up in your studies?
So basically, you're asking for a small calculus lesson, Chelsea?
I mean, oh gosh, I guess so.
It sounds to me like it's like where the mathematical meets sort of like the divine and golden standards and ratios. To me, that's what it's kind of sounds like. He's, I could be off there, but that's what I felt like I was hearing a little bit of. I don't know if that answers your question, Chelsea. I'm just like thinking out loud like I normally do, you know, talk to thinker.
No, you're good.
So Juliet Aristides' husband is a math teacher, and he's absolutely brilliant, and he would come in occasionally to lecture on proportion and harmony, and I wish I had a mind for it and could better remember what all he said, but I do remember that it was very brilliant and very interesting at the time. I just don't remember the specifics.
Well, that's pretty awesome. And Juliet Aristides is pretty awesome. So, and her husband's a mathematician. I mean, what a power couple.
I know, right? Yeah, he would come in and he'd kind of analyze our compositions and give us pointers on, golden ratio and things like that. It was really interesting.
And Emma, you're talking about your schooling and where you went, right?
Yes, yeah, at
which
Georgetown
was,
Atelier.
Georgetown, yeah.
In Seattle.
Shout out to Georgetown.
Yes, shout out to Georgetown.
All right, I guess I need to put some beard in.
I know, we are in weirdly analogous situations right now.
I have this like floating mouth at the moment that I need to like fill in.
Ooh, I wonder how much of that color is the color of his shirt.
Luz says, relativity. It is everything and there is nothing without it. Zeno's paradox. If one thing exists, then there must be another thing to separate that thing from another.
I think that,
Yeah, that's
I
interesting.
can certainly see that connection, painting-wise. Helpful to think about unifying a lot of information, losing edges, when you recognize that there isn't really anything separating two shapes.
And on that note, it is time for another model break.
All right.
We will be back shortly. We are back.
That reminds me of a saying my wife has. My wife has like a Persian background, and so every now and again, some idioms or cliches will get their like lines crossed, you know. And so my wife, she's got some of the greatest little sayings, you know, where she might mix the two up, and she doesn't know because that's like maybe all she heard growing up or for whatever reason. So I'll never forget, like one day we were talking and she meant to say like, you know, now isn't that the pot calling the kettle black, right? But instead she goes, well, isn't that the cat calling the kettle black? And I like looked at her and was like, huh? You know? And she's like, what, huh? And I was like, what did you just say? She goes, the cat calling the kettle black. It's like, babe, that's exactly what it is. We're just going to keep it there.
Well, now
you know?
I need to know what it was she was intending to convey.
That was like 12 years ago. So this is like a legend in our relationship because it was like when we were dating. But there's several of them.
You'll have to ask her what the actual expression was that she was going for so that she can satisfy my curiosity.
Oh, that was the pot calling the kettle black was the expression.
What was the like Persian half of it with
Oh.
the cat and the...
Sorry. Yeah, no, the Persian part is just you come from a foreign place and you learn new American idioms and you accidentally get them crossed.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. So that's like the main part there.
It makes me think about Dungeon Crawler Carl.
Yeah.
Yesterday when I was listening, Donut was talking about Secret Asian Man.
Yeah.
And Carl's
Yes,
like,
exactly.
It's Secret Asian Man.
Yes.
She's like, really? And he's like, why would it be Secret Asian Man? And she's like, I guess.
Yep. Honestly, I was there with her though. I've totally thought that.
What a delightful book.
I found myself laughing out loud so many times while reading that book. So for anyone who's interested in likes sci-fi or fantasy, Dungeon Crawler Carl has become one of my new favorite reads. So Chelsea, you're going to Portrait Society, right?
I am indeed.
So exciting.
I'm super stoked. I'm going to be posing for the face-off.
Woo!
Oh, that's exciting.
That's awesome. Do you know who your artists are yet?
No.
Yeah, I think that's usually decided kind of on
Yeah, on the day.
site. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I am moderating the like late night figure session with Rob Liberace and Shane Wolf.
Nice.
Yeah, super excited for that. So I'm getting my practice in tonight with all of you lovely people. Granted, I mean, I'm demoing, but also trying to talk and be somewhat entertaining verbally as well as artistically.
That's great. That'll be so much fun. I'll be moderating. I think I'm doing something with Rob too, moderating something with him. I think it's maybe him and Dan Thompson.
Is it like one of the smaller?
It's one of the breakout sessions.
Yeah. Do you
So-
know what the topic is? I hope you do.
I did. But it was like about a month ago that they asked me, and I've since forgotten, but I need to check it again and see which one it is.
And are you moderating or are you presenting?
Well, I think I'm doing both.
Oh, okay.
I think I'm presenting and moderating them, and then I'm doing the other one. I know that I'm doing is Adrian Stein and Tim Reese are going to be doing Painting Children as one of theirs, and so I'll be introducing them and
You'll be
moderating them too.
perfect for that.
Yeah, I think they must have had that in mind. I think when they asked me that one, I was like, well, that works out.
Yeah.
I think I know. Not that it matters that I do know the subject matter, but
No, I think it makes a huge difference. It suddenly makes me feel very self-conscious about moderating the figure session,
Oh, no.
considering I don't paint figures nearly as much, but that's okay.
Well, if you can help people get their questions answered, I think that's all that really matters.
That's true.
And that we know you're pretty good at. So
So,
that's going to be a fun year. We're going to have a lot. My wife's first year going.
Oh, that's so fun.
Really?
So excited.
what is her, like, I don't know, objective? What is she going to be doing while she's on site?
I think she is going to be kind of like just kind of by my side doing stuff with me. But we have so many of us. If I'm busy, you know, you, Emily Fossum, Fina will be there, and Evie will be there. So there'll be so many of us there that she will always have someone to like hang out with and do stuff with. But for the most part, I think she's just going to kind of like be showing her the ropes and like introducing people to her that she's always heard their names or
Oh, cool.
me say
Okay.
something to.
So it's not like she has like a particular agenda. It's like
No.
she gets to experience it for
Exactly.
the first time.
She gets to
Nice.
experience it. So maybe I should have just led with that. But yes, that's exactly right.
No, I was thinking about it because some of my like best students have been Portrait Society attendees, and I've had conversations with prospective students when there. And one thing I was looking at was having Chris, who helps me with enrolling new students now. One thought I had was like potentially seeing about him coming up and attending.
Oh, cool. Is he an artist?
He is, yep.
Great.
And you know, potentially making some connections and having those kinds of conversations, because he's like you. He gets energy from people and really loves meeting new people, which is
I
why
can't wait to meet him.
Yeah. So
So he's going to be there though. All that be said.
probably not this year. Probably when it's in
Okay.
Atlanta again.
Okay.
It was a very last minute idea on my part of like maybe this is something that we could make happen, but it's just he's in Clemson, South Carolina, so the Atlanta conference would be much easier for that.
Yeah.
And I was explaining like, you know, this would be kind of a test for me too. Like I don't know exactly what your experience would be as far as enrollments and all that kind of thing. So because it would just be a little bit of a let's find out, probably makes sense to look at when it's closer to home for him. Oh, I really hate
Yeah.
that color I just mixed up. Is it raining?
I think it is.
Oh, really?
I actually love being down here because you'll hear things like that, but it'll be just very soft if it's quiet down here. It's funny because I go through phases where when I'm painting it's really quiet, or I'll be like listening to music, podcasts, audiobooks, whatever. But the moments that I do have it quiet and I'm just like working on something and you start hearing that pitter patter, it's pretty great.
I'm officially at what I'm kind of afraid to call the fun part, but everything is covered. I have been diligent, and now I can like adjust and refine and fix, and I'm excited for that.
That is a fun stage.
Lou has a few more thoughts.
Tell us.
Yes. Painting operates pretty similarly in the way I've worked so far. See things as one image and also many smaller images that work together. That's interesting.
Yeah.
And then says, you guys distracted me long enough from painting though. Your pieces are beautiful so far. I hope Chelsea is smug with how perfectly she aced the block-in shadow of the beard.
Oh, thank you.
Nice.
I love that.
Especially because it definitely went through some permutations there. Well, Lou, thank you.
And happy painting.
Yeah. I'm actually really curious now whether Lou's working on, one of the East Oaks references or on an original composition. But I hope it goes really swimmingly and enjoyably. I hope there's flow.
Yeah, we would love to see if you want to send us a message on Instagram or tag us.
Okay. I think you've been really smart to compress your values like that.
I started in the midtones.
It's just really going for like a Sargent vibe. Okay, my stomach needs to calm down.
You hungry?
I don't even know why it's making noise.
So for your time management, we have about 10 more minutes in this session.
If you had said you have
10 more minutes left. I
like
was
the way that you led up to that.
Yeah. That was actually kind of genius.
That's
You
funny.
have 10 more minutes.
10 more minutes.
In this
plus
session.
another 25 minutes, approximately.
Okay. All right.
That's too little.
It's still too little, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's what we got.
And I
so.
personally blame you, Emma.
Yep, I'm just speeding up the clock here. Oh, Lou is working from the reference pictures of this very model.
Oh, excellent.
Nice.
Yes, we'd love to see. And Ty says, can you give him a tiny cowboy hat?
Oh my gosh, we were talking while we were setting the pose. He kindly brought a hat and I ixnayed it.
How dare you?
I know. Specifically because the last time we had a model, he did have a cowboy hat, and I really struggled with like fitting it into the composition. So I said, let's skip it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, adding a hat sometimes adds a whole new like level of like your canvas that you have to like figure out. And sadly, like I have not been working on like the composition of this piece. That'll be something I probably will do well after the live stream. I was more concerned about getting the likeness today.
I feel like if you asked most people, they would assume the composition has to come before everything else. So how are you thinking about like adjusting the composition after the fact?
That's a good question. I mean, usually, number one, the first thing I saw is that I shifted slightly to the left a little bit more than I wanted.
But clearly you're not going to like pick the whole thing up and shift it to the right.
Exactly. So you just cut the camp. No.
I mean,
I've
think some do that.
done such things, so wouldn't put it past me. But honestly, there are times, speaking of, where I will paint on a larger canvas just for the purpose that if I need to cut it to be more correct, to like make a composition out of it, that has been something I have done.
that's pretty genius, actually.
So it's worked out to my favor several times.
My workaround for this is that I will start a piece with a really clear mock-up of what I want the entire composition to look like, where everything really is arranged correctly. usually a digital version that's in Photoshop. I will start the piece, take a picture of it, make sure the aspect ratio of the canvas is the same as the aspect ratio of my mock-up that I already know that I like. And I'll do like a translucent overlay and just compare where I place the subject when it's still at a very, very simple block-in stage.
Wasn't that what your lecture was on in Portrait Society's lecture?
Yeah, I did touch on that idea of like going in with a plan, and it's something I talk about quite a lot.
That's great.
It has certainly saved a lot of paintings. I don't know why I just did that.
Yeah, I think that's so interesting, Chelsea, what you were saying earlier about how you plan out and block out your painting beforehand, especially those marks that are more, or you would think of looking at it that they're more kind of spontaneous.
Improvisational,
Yeah, but they're really actually planned out. I think that's so interesting for people to know.
Yeah, and like this is the interesting counterpoint to it, where like this is where I get to really practice that, and I get to try things, but I also accept that in truly doing it more improvisationally here with you all, like I am running the risk that I ruin the painting. And I think when so many people think about their favorite painters, they are holding themselves to the standard of their favorite painter's best paintings and forgetting that there are probably hundreds that were trashed because like that's
Yep.
where they were experimenting and
Yep.
actually letting things get ruined.
Yep. It's a great point. All the sort of, I always like think, like for example, Vermeer never like they don't have any of his drawings or any of his things. So I think he just like trashed everything and just like kept just the absolute best.
Makes sense.
He's like, you know what? I don't want to be remembered for that. That's going into the heap.
I think I heard like a Warhol story like that where he would like incinerate. He like instructed his studio assistants to go incinerate things.
With a guy that was that prolific, yeah, I think you could easily do that and get away with, because you still have only just several thousand pieces that are making it.
Yeah, I forget if it really was Warhol or if I'm conflating it with somebody else, but.
All right, I guess I'm going to put in a little bit of a neck.
I feel like this is always the point where it starts to get a little bit quieter.
Yep.
It's on you now.
Highly concentrated.
Yeah, no pressure.
Oh, that was nice. That was a good mark, Chelsea.
Way to go,
Remember-
Chelsea.
Yeah, thank you. Remember that. Remember that next time. Now, what I had intended to do on this was probably start with like that kind of mid-tone, and rather than tiling in, think about creating a lot of form in the early stages, but be really deliberate about some things. Like the brow gets to be one big shape and then one accent. And like you're limited to that number of marks. And I really didn't do that this time, but I can see if I can take that idea and like, I don't know, sort of backdoor it.
Was that ever part of the East October challenge to have a limited number of brush strokes?
It was. I think one of the challenges were you could only put one mark down, and then leave it.
Okay.
You couldn't like.
Why wasn't I invited to paint that
I
day?
don't know. Maybe we didn't. Maybe we should do that one next time if we didn't do it.
Okay. That's nice. Yes. I planted a tree today, so I'm happy it's raining.
That's fun.
In your yard?
Yes.
What kind of tree?
A weeping cherry.
Oh, beautiful.
That's fun.
Yeah. I'm very excited for 5 years from now when it starts to look like something.
When it actually has like a cherry.
Right. Even just like flowers, or like a shape, like a pleasant shape. Like, I'm not picky.
Yeah. You're like, just show me something. Show me that you care a little bit.
Yeah, I put it in a spot where the previous tree had died. I think it got like an infection. But it's okay because I didn't really like the tree anyway. So it's like, well, convenient enough.
Like, it's okay.
All right, that is time for our final model break.
How dare you?
I know,
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. Did it just for you, Chelsea.
Yeah, I should have known.
We will be back shortly for our final session. We are back for our very final session of this painting from life. So if you have any final burning questions before to ask them, be sure to ask them in these next 20 minutes.
All right, now that I've taken that photo, I have to pretend that it doesn't exist because I'm just gonna freaking nail it.
You've got it, Chelsea.
Thank you.
You got this. You got this.
There's a lot that I gotta make happen here. I can't believe you're stumping me, Mike. Maybe not stumping, just painting a lot slower than usual.
Well, you know, it's the whole talking thing.
Yeah, that's true.
Did you say this is a normal time session?
Let's see.
We theoretically have
It was like 23 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that just really doesn't make the mark that I wanted it to make. Let's try this. Yes.
That made me think of Saturday Night Live skit, SNL guy, Ladies Man, where you go, yes, yes. Yes, that's right, that's beautiful.
Maybe it's that I was like carefully checking color rather than like throwing caution to the wind. Maybe the lesson here is like, don't try and learn or change or grow or be different. Just do what's always worked and don't question anything. Okay.
Lou says, "You've got it, Chelsea."
Thank you, Lou.
All caps.
Go, Chels. Go, 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 go.
Man, you put the final countdown in my head and you didn't even do anything other than just like you suggested the very idea of song. And I've just been coming here doing these for long enough that it just came into my head.
Yep.
No consent.
Da-da-da-da. No consent. Just rent free in my head. Love you, Chels.
I All right, I need this soft boy to deepen these shadows. Emma, are you working on any like projects right now? Anything special?
I just finished up a small landscape commission for a friend, so that was really fun. But I'm mostly putting bigger projects on hold for right now till
Yeah.
after I move. But I have been trying to paint from life, whether it's plein air or just setting up a little still life or
You've been out here painting plein air and not telling me about it?
I know. I've gotten out a few times this spring. It's been really nice.
Ah,
Let's plan a day before I go.
Okay, deal. You're
Let's do
on.
it.
Where has been like your favorite place that you've gotten some painting in?
Anywhere within walking distance of where I live.
Fair.
No, there's a really beautiful little park that's just a few blocks away. And it has a creek going through it and beautiful forest. So that's been a good spot.
Nice. Wow, that was not the right color or value. Just
It's funny, that final countdown's not in my head today. It's the like Ray Charles, "Here we go again." I don't even know why. It's just, it's up there, hanging out, rent free.
okay. It's always nice when you go from like, I don't know what needs adjusting to, oh, this needs this very specific adjustment. I know exactly what needs to happen. I know how to make it. It's just always so nice.
It is nice. You know when you like run out of a color, but you're like, this is the last session, and I'm not gonna like go get the color. How can I make the color happen?
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
You know?
every time.
Oh, I'm so at that point right now.
What do you need? Blue?
Manganese violet, but I think
Oh.
I'm just gonna wing it without
Yeah,
it.
I can't help you with manganese violet. My palette is too bare to assist with. Not bare, but to. You're fully decked out. I am not.
Honestly, being less decked out is probably the best way to do these things here.
Fair. Especially when you gotta pack up all your stuff.
Well, that's true too. Yeah. Yeah, I do kind of have the luxury of that point. As always, Mike's been a rock star, hanging out. Coming in clutch when we need them.
Yeah, really, this was last minute, and we really, really appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
It's been so fun watching you both paint. Your different approaches.
You know, it is been a lot of fun. I haven't been able to like do one of these in a while, so it's been fun to kind of get back in the saddle.
So my biggest fixing the whole value structure thing here is really helpful, but biggest thing that's really bugging me on this right now is his eyes. And if I can just get those to a decent spot, I think it's going to make a really big difference. But so far, I haven't been able to really put my finger on what has to happen. That value feels too freaking light.
Darken it down.
But I feel like it's what I'm seeing, and then when I look at my piece, I'm like,
I'm just being a jerk.
okay.
It's too freaking light. Well, that sounds like something like, you know, if I said something out loud because I'm, yet again, verbal processor here, said that myself, Priest would be like, well, then just do the other thing. It's not that simple, babe. God.
I can't tell you how many students I've had to tell to like disallow their spouses from their studio for a not dissimilar reason. Okay, cheek looking great. Like, love it. Happy with it. Can I make it look like a little better? Yes. Will that change the painting? Will it make me feel better? Yes. Is it a mistake?
I'm loving it.
The
Every bit of it.
play-by-play.
Yep, the play-by-play is great.
So Andrea says it would be fun to see what everyone else came up with on their own. If there was a place to post them all, would be cool. So if anyone has been working on this, they're welcome to tag us in it on Instagram, and we'd be happy to share it so that everyone can see. Also, if you are a subscriber to Atelier Live, our platform, there's a new community feature that we've recently launched for that very reason, so that people can connect and share work and see what everyone else is working on.
Can't help it. Got to get the manganese out.
Bold move. Last
Bold
10
move.
minutes.
Last 10 minutes. Just a tiny little dollop.
Here, Lewis Carr wasting precious, precious time here in our last session. Okay, okay. I guess if I'm working on his eyes, I can put my glasses on. Might be useful.
Could be.
It's really fun when I'm like having to talk myself through, you know, not messing up the painting, and I'm also like actively coaching myself on posture so my back doesn't hurt.
A lot to be thinking about there, Chelsea.
I know.
There's so many times when I catch myself when I'm painting, I'm like, how did I get into this position?
Yep.
It's so painful.
Yeah, I am slowly in my gym efforts correcting my pelvic tilt and all that like muscular balance.
Mm-hmm.
And man, that is a really slow, tedious
Oh,
journey.
man. And you're somebody that's more flexible than most, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's really difficult for me to get the other pelvic tilt. Like my hip flexor is incredibly tight. It's like one of the only places where I have a tremendous amount of tension. Yeah, so apparently hypermobility can sometimes present as like hypomobility in specific ranges because your body will try to compensate to create stability.
Yep.
So in like the opposite movement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's taking every like iota of muscular control to try and turn my abs and glutes on, which is weirdly competing with my ability to paint.
Yeah, this is like you were saying, that the fun stage of the painting. It's like I felt like I just got there, so it's like sort of sad where you're like, oh,
I know.
we're about to end.
Can enjoy it for the next 5 minutes.
No. Okay, I am not gonna do this fiddly shit around his eye. I'm gonna be decisive. And it's gonna make a nice shape. Dang it.
I feel like you're talking yourself in there, Shetton. There.
Yeah. There are just certain things that like really bug me about the way people paint eyes, and I'm like really on the verge of engaging in those things.
You're doing a bold move starting on the eyes right now.
I know. Hey, you're working on them too. I see you.
Yeah, I'm kind of like just jumping around, putting warm, cool, soft edges. It's like I got my warm down. Now I gotta put some cool down. I feel like our audience has been a little bit more low key tonight. And some
Are they
people,
usually uppity?
well, like, chatty. Yes. Yeah, how can you be kind of peppy on a chat? You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of hard to do. Good point, good point.
You always count on me for the sass.
Lou says it's been so wonderful painting with you all. Thank you so much for doing these.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all so much for tuning in. We'll have to get some more on the upcoming schedule.
Yeah, that'd be great to get some more on the schedule.
Yeah, we can work on that. Look at the calendar.
It's just so fussy in there.
I refrain from being sassy again on that one.
Yeah.
Speaking of sassy, we have a joke.
Oh, I love
Okay,
it.
great. I thought you were going to tell us how much time was left. And I was like, that is sassy.
Yep.
I can do that as well. I've got 2 minutes.
Wow. She's really like doubling down.
But Benjamin says, did you hear about the artist that told too many puns?
Uh-oh.
He was told to Van Gogh.
Yeah. Yep. Who put that in there?
Benjamin?
Okay. Because that sounds like a, oh my gosh, having like a moment here. What's his? Oh, it's just there's a friend of mine.
I'm too busy panicking about this
Yep,
highlight
exactly.
to help you.
A friend of mine that would be here would be all about that kind. It sounds like a dad joke he would say.
That's funny.
Must not be that close of a friend if I can't remember his name right now.
Yeah. Okay, that highlight really brought it all together. Right?
Yeah, right. Oh, I need to put the highlight. I have 2 minutes. I got to put the highlight in.
No, I don't think you have 2 minutes now.
In regard to the chat being a little quieter this evening, Andrea said it's too difficult to paint and type, which is a
Hey.
very good point.
It's difficult enough to talk and paint.
Right.
No.
Don't do it!
How dare you?
The final panic.
I mean, like if we have to stop, jeez. Seems like so rude.
Well, I'm afraid it is that time.
All right.
right.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us this evening. Thank you to Mike,
Thank you, Mike.
and Emma for switchering behind the scenes, for Chelsea for being here with us this evening. We truly appreciate y'all. Let us see what you did, and we'll be doing another one of these very soon. We will be having Ruth Fenton here very, very soon. So we'll be doing an online workshop as well as a sort of boutique workshop. We did have somebody that just dropped out.
Yeah, that's
so we
true.
Have
So we have one
one
more
spot
spot.
open if anyone is
in-person.
interested. What's that?
For the in-person
For
workshop.
the in-person part of it.
Yeah.
But anybody else who wants to join, she will be doing live demonstrations every morning while she's here on our platform. So thank y'all again. We will be doing one, I'm sure, very soon. And we look forward to seeing you then. Happy painting.
Thanks so much, everyone, for joining. Have a good night.